Kevin Harper was the kind of guy everyone either feared or avoided. At Maplewood High, he had earned a reputation for being the loudest, proudest, and meanest senior in the entire school. His broad shoulders and confident smirk made him stand out in any crowd, but it wasn't just his size that intimidated people. It was the way he carried himself. Kevin always seemed to know exactly how much power he held over others, and he loved using it. Whether it was tripping freshmen in the hallway or making fun of kids who didn't fit into the popular group, Kevin thrived on making others feel small. On this particular Tuesday afternoon, Kevin sat at his usual spot near the center of the cafeteria, surrounded by his friends. They laughed loudly at every joke he made, even when it wasn't funny. The room buzzed with chatter as students ate their lunches, but Kevin's eyes scanned the space lazily, looking for someone new to pick on. That's when he noticed her, a girl sitting all alone at a corner table. She looked different from the other students, quieter somehow, like she didn't belong here. Her name was Lily Carter, though Kevin didn't know that yet. She had only transferred to Maplewood High a few days ago, and already she preferred keeping to herself. While most students filled their trays with greasy burgers and fries, Lily brought her own lunch, a simple sandwich wrapped in wax paper. Instead of joining the noisy groups around her, she chose a quiet table by the window where she could sketch in her notebook without distractions. Her pencil moved quickly across the page, creating lines and shapes that told stories only she understood. Kevin nudged his friend Jake, jerking his chin toward Lily. "Who's that?" he asked, his voice loud enough to draw attention from nearby tables. Jake glanced over and shrugged. "New girl. Keeps to herself. No one really talks to her." A slow grin spread across Kevin's face. "Perfect," he said, standing up abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor, silencing the conversations around him. Everyone turned to watch as Kevin swaggered toward Lily's table, his heavy footsteps echoing through the cafeteria. Lily didn't notice him until his shadow fell over her notebook. She looked up hesitantly, her dark eyes meeting his. For a moment, Kevin hesitated. There was something about the way she stared at him. Not scared, not angry, just calm, that threw him off balance. But then he remembered who he was. He was Kevin Harper, the king of Maplewood High. No one ignored him. "What are you drawing?" he demanded, leaning down to snatch the notebook out of her hands. Lily flinched but didn't say anything. Kevin flipped through the pages, smirking, at the sketches of trees, animals, and strange symbols he didn't understand. "These are weird," he announced, holding the book up so his friends could see. Laughter erupted from their table, and some of the nearby students joined in nervously. "Give it back," Lily said quietly, holding out her hand. Her voice was soft but firm, cutting through the noise like a blade. Kevin raised an eyebrow. "What did you say?" "I said give it back," she repeated, louder this time. A few students gasped. No one talked back to Kevin Harper. Ever. For a second, Kevin considered handing the notebook over. Something about the way Lily spoke gave him pause, but then his pride kicked in. He couldn't let her get away with challenging him, not in front of everyone. So instead of returning the notebook, he tossed it onto the floor and stepped on it, grinding his shoe into the cover for good measure. Lily's jaw tightened, but she still didn't raise her voice. She bent down to pick up the damaged notebook, brushing off crumbs and dirt. Kevin watched her, waiting for tears or anger, anything that would prove he'd won. When nothing came, his frustration boiled over. "You think you're too good to talk to us?" he sneered, grabbing her arm roughly. "Answer me." The cafeteria went silent. All eyes were on them now, watching as Kevin loomed over Lily like a storm cloud ready to burst. Lily met his gaze again, her expression unreadable. Then, without warning, Kevin raised his hand and slapped her across the face. The sound echoed through the room like a gunshot. Lily stumbled backward, clutching her cheek. Gasps and whispers rippled through the crowd, but no one dared to step forward. Kevin stood there, breathing heavily, his chest puffed out like a rooster ready to crow. He expected Lily to cry, to beg for mercy, to run away in shame. What he didn't expect was the look she gave him. It wasn't fear or sadness in her eyes, it was pity. pure, unshakable pity, like she felt sorry for him. And then, in a voice so low only he could hear, she muttered, "You have no idea what you've just done." Kevin froze. For the first time in years, he felt unsure of himself. Who was this girl? Why wasn't she afraid of him? Before he could ask, the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. Students scrambled to gather their things and leave, eager to escape the tension in the air. Lily slipped away quietly, disappearing into the hallway before anyone could stop her. As Kevin returned to his table, his friends congratulated him on putting the new girl in her place. But deep down, Kevin couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Something about Lily and the way she had looked at him stayed lodged in his mind like a splinter. Little did he know, his life was about to change in ways he couldn't possibly imagine. Word spread quickly about what happened in the cafeteria. By the end of the school day, nearly everyone knew that Kevin Harper had slapped Lily Carter, the quiet new girl who kept to herself. Most students whispered about it in hushed tones, wondering why she didn't fight back or cry like anyone else would have. Some thought she was just too scared to stand up to Kevin, while others assumed she'd transfer schools after such a public humiliation. But no one really understood what was going on inside Lily's head. When the final bell rang, signaling the end of classes, Lily walked straight to her locker, ignoring the stares and murmurs around her. She grabbed her backpack and headed outside, without saying a word to anyone. As she stepped onto the sidewalk, a group of girls tried to approach her, but Lily simply shook her head and kept walking. She didn't want pity or questions. All she wanted was to get home. Lily lived with her grandfather in a small house on the edge of town. Her parents had passed away years ago, leaving her in his care. To most people, her grandfather was just an ordinary man, a retired rancher who spent his days tending to horses and fixing fences. But Lily knew better. Her grandfather wasn't just any man. He was Chuck Norris, legendary martial artist and actor turned recluse. Though he rarely spoke about his past, Lily grew up learning everything he knew about discipline, respect, and self-defense. And now, as she walked home, she couldn't help but think about how Kevin Harper had crossed a line. When she arrived at the house, her grandfather was sitting on the porch, whittling a piece of wood into the shape of a bird. His hands moved slowly but steadily, each stroke precise and deliberate. When he saw Lily approaching, he set the knife down and studied her face. "Something wrong?" he asked, his voice calm but sharp. Lily hesitated before answering. She didn't want to bother him with her problems, but she also knew she couldn't keep something like this bottled up. Taking a deep breath, she told him what happened, how Kevin had mocked her drawings, thrown her notebook on the ground, and then slapped her in front of everyone. Chuck listened silently, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. "And what did you do afterward?" he asked. "Nothing," Lily admitted. "I just left." Chuck nodded slowly, as if he expected this answer. "You know, Lily," he said, picking up the carving knife again, "there's a difference between walking away and letting someone walk all over you. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words, but other times action is needed to make a point." Lily frowned. "What are you saying? That I should have hit him back?" Her grandfather chuckled softly. "Not necessarily. Violence isn't always the answer. But respect is earned, not given freely. If someone disrespects you and you let it slide without addressing it, they'll only do it again. It's important to show them where the line is and that there are consequences for crossing it." Lily thought about this for a moment. She hadn't considered fighting back because she didn't see the point. Kevin was bigger, stronger, and surrounded by friends who cheered him on. What could she possibly do to stop him? But as she looked at her grandfather, she realized he wasn't suggesting she rely on brute strength. There were other ways to handle a bully, ways that involved skill, strategy, and confidence. Later that evening after dinner, Chuck took Lily out to the backyard. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the grass. He stood facing her, his posture relaxed but alert. "Let's practice," he said simply. For the next hour, They worked through a series of drills and techniques. Chuck taught her how to anticipate an opponent's movements, how to use their momentum against them, and how to strike with precision rather than force. Each move was smooth and controlled, almost like a dance. By the time they finished, Lily felt a newfound sense of empowerment coursing through her veins. Meanwhile, Kevin was dealing with his own issues. At first, he felt satisfied with himself for putting Lily in her place. He bragged to his friends about how easy it had been to intimidate her, acting like he'd won some kind of victory. But as the day went on, he began to notice something strange. People weren't looking at him the same way anymore. Instead of admiration, he saw judgment in their eyes. Some students avoided him altogether, while others whispered behind his back. His best friend, Jake, finally confronted him during gym class. "Dude, what's wrong with you?" Jake asked, tossing a basketball back and forth between his hands. "Why'd you slap her like that? She didn't do anything to you." Kevin shrugged defensively. "She deserved it. She was being rude." "Rude?" Jake repeated, raising an eyebrow. "How? Because she didn't laugh at your dumb jokes? You embarrassed her in front of the whole school, man. That's messed up." Kevin opened his mouth to argue but stopped himself. Deep down, he knew Jake was right. Slapping someone, especially a girl, wasn't cool no matter how much he tried to justify it. Still, admitting that meant swallowing his pride, and Kevin wasn't ready to do that yet, so instead he changed the subject. "Whatever. She probably won't even come back to school tomorrow." But Kevin was wrong. The next morning, Lily showed up just like any other day. She sat in her usual spot during homeroom, her notebook open on her desk. Her cheek still bore a faint red mark from the slap, but otherwise she seemed completely unfazed. This confused Kevin. Shouldn't she be crying? Or angry? Or at least avoiding him? As the day went on, Kevin found himself watching Lily more closely. He noticed how she carried herself with quiet confidence, as if nothing could shake her. Even when other students stared or whispered about her, she remained calm and composed. It was unnerving, like she knew something he didn't. By lunchtime, Kevin's curiosity got the better of him. He decided to confront her again, partly to prove to himself that he still had power over her, and partly because he couldn't stand the uncertainty anymore. As Lily sat alone at her table sketching in her notebook, Kevin marched over and slammed his fists down on the surface, making her jump slightly. "What's your deal?" he demanded, glaring at her. "Why aren't you scared of me?" Lily looked up at him, her dark eyes meeting his. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Then slowly, Lily closed her notebook and stood up, leveling her gaze with his. "Because I don't need to be," she replied simply. Kevin blinked, caught off guard by her response. Before he could react, Lily added, "You might think you're tough, Kevin, but trust me, you don't want to find out what happens when someone stands up to you." Her tone wasn't threatening or angry. In fact, it was almost gentle, like she was giving him a warning rather than issuing a challenge. But there was something in her voice and underlying strength that made Kevin hesitate. Who was this girl, really? And what exactly did she mean by standing up to him? Before he could ask, Lily picked up her tray and walked away, leaving Kevin standing there, staring after her with a mix of confusion and unease. Whatever doubts he'd had before were now amplified tenfold. Something about Lily Carter was different, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. And as much as he hated to admit it, part of him was starting to feel afraid. The next morning, Kevin woke up with a strange feeling in his chest. It wasn't fear exactly, but something close to it. A nagging sense that he had made a mistake he couldn't undo. He tried to shake it off as he got ready for school, telling himself he was overthinking things. After all, he was Kevin Harper. He didn't back down from anyone, and he certainly didn't second-guess his actions. But when he walked into the hallway at Maplewood High, he noticed something different. People weren't looking at him the way they used to. Some students avoided eye contact altogether, while others whispered behind their hands when he passed by. Even his friends seemed quieter than usual, exchanging glances but not saying much. It was like the entire school knew something he didn't, and it made him uneasy. Kevin spotted Lily near her locker just like any other day. She was calm and composed as if nothing had happened between them. Her notebook was tucked under one arm, and she wore the same simple clothes she always did. There was no sign of anger or sadness on her face, just quiet confidence. Kevin clenched his fists, frustration bubbling inside him. How could she act so normal after what he'd done? Didn't she realize who he was? Determined to get answers, Kevin approached her during break. The hallway was crowded, but Lily stood out somehow, almost like she existed in her own world. When Kevin stepped in front of her, blocking her path, she stopped and looked up at him without flinching. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice steady. Kevin hesitated for a moment, thrown off by her directness. "I want to know why you're acting like nothing happened," he snapped. "You should be scared of me." Lily tilted her head slightly, studying him as if he were a puzzle she was trying to solve. "Why would I be scared of someone who doesn't understand respect?" she replied. Her words hit Kevin like a punch to the gut. He wasn't used to being spoken to like that, especially by someone he considered weaker than him. His face flushed with anger, and he took a step closer, towering over her. "You think you're better than me?" he growled. "Go ahead, say it, I dare you." Lily didn't move. Instead, she smiled faintly, almost like she felt sorry for him. "I don't need to prove anything to you," she said. "But if you really want to test me, go ahead. Try to push me around again. See what happens." Kevin's hands balled into fists. He didn't know what had gotten into her, but he wasn't about to let her talk to him like that. With a grunt, he reached out to grab her arm, intending to yank her forward. But before his fingers could even touch her, Lily sidestepped him effortlessly, moving faster than he thought possible. In one fluid motion, she twisted his arm behind his back and pushed him against the lockers, pinning him there with surprising strength. The hallway went silent. Students froze in place, staring wide-eyed at the scene unfolding before them. Kevin struggled to break free, but Lily held him firmly in place, her grip unyielding. "This is your chance to learn," she said quietly, leaning close enough for only him to hear. "Respect isn't given freely. You have to earn it." For a moment, Kevin couldn't breathe. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. How could this tiny girl overpower him so easily? Who was she? Panic began to creep in, but before he could say anything, Lily released him and stepped back, brushing her hands together as if nothing had happened. Kevin stumbled forward, rubbing his sore arm. His face burned with embarrassment as he realized everyone was watching. Some students clapped or cheered quietly while others simply stared in awe. No one had ever stood up to Kevin Harper like that, and certainly not a girl. You can't do that," Kevin stammered, pointing a finger at her. "I'll tell the principal, you'll get expelled." Lily crossed her arms and raised an eyebrow. "Go ahead," she said coolly. "But maybe you should think about why you started this in the first place." Kevin opened his mouth to argue, but no words came out. He wanted to yell, to demand justice, to reclaim his pride. But deep down, he knew she was right. He had started this whole mess by picking on her for no reason. And now, standing here humiliated in front of the entire school, he finally understood what Jake had been trying to tell him. Slapping Lily hadn't made him look strong. It had made him look cruel. Defeated, Kevin turned and pushed his way through, the crowd ignoring the whispers and stares that followed him. He didn't stop until he reached the boys' bathroom, where he locked himself in a stall and sat on the toilet lid, his head in his hands. For the first time in his life, Kevin Harper felt truly small. News of the confrontation spread like wildfire. By lunchtime, everyone was talking about how Lily Carter had taken down Kevin Harper in less than 10 seconds. Some students called her a hero, while others speculated about where she had learned such incredible skills. Rumors began circulating that she was related to someone famous, though no one could agree on who. Lily, however, remained unfazed by the attention. She continued going about her day as if nothing unusual had happened, sketching in her notebook, during class and eating lunch alone. But this time people approached her, not to mock her but to thank her. A few freshmen told her they wished they had her courage, while a shy sophomore admitted she had inspired him to stand up to his own bullies. Lily listened patiently, offering kind words and advice whenever she could. Even teachers noticed a change in the atmosphere at school. The hallways felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. Students who had once cowered under Kevin's shadow now walked with their heads held high. It was as if Lily's actions had sparked something, a newfound sense of hope and empowerment. That afternoon, Kevin stayed late at school, skipping the bus ride home. He wandered aimlessly around the empty halls, replaying the events of the day in his mind. Every time he thought about how Lily had pinned him against the lockers, a wave of shame washed over him. He hated feeling weak, but worse than that, he hated knowing he deserved it. Eventually, he found himself outside the art room, where Lily was working on a painting for her portfolio. She didn't notice him at first, too focused on blending colors on her canvas. When Kevin cleared his throat awkwardly, she turned and looked at him, her expression unreadable. "What do you want?" she asked, setting her paintbrush down. Kevin shifted uncomfortably, shoving his hands into his pockets. I wanted to say sorry," he muttered, staring at the floor, "for slapping you, and for everything else." For a long moment, Lily didn't respond. Then she sighed and wiped her hands on a rag. "Apologies are easy," she said. "It's what comes after that matters. Are you really sorry? Or are you just saying it because you got caught?" Kevin winced. He hated how she always seemed to see right through him. "I mean it," he said, forcing himself to meet her gaze. "I messed up. I thought being tough meant pushing people around, but I see now that's not true. I don't want to be that guy anymore." Lily studied him, carefully, searching for any sign of dishonesty. Finally, she nodded. "Okay," she said simply. "But remember, actions speak louder than words. If you're serious about changing, start by treating people with kindness instead of fear." Kevin swallowed hard, nodding vigorously. "I will, I promise." As he left the art room, Kevin felt a strange sense of relief wash over him. For the first time in years, he didn't feel the need to prove himself to anyone. Maybe, just maybe, this was his chance to become someone better. Later that evening, Lily returned home to find her grandfather waiting for her on the porch. He had a knowing look on his face, as if he already knew what had happened. "How was your day?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Lily smiled faintly. "Eventful," she replied, sitting down beside him. "But I think Kevin might finally be learning his lesson." Chuck chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Good. Sometimes a little humility goes a long way." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the sun dip below the horizon. For the first time in days, Lily felt at peace. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew she could handle them, as long as she stayed true to herself. Over the next few days, things at Maplewood High began to shift in ways no one had expected. Kevin Harper, once the undisputed king of the school, was noticeably quieter. He kept to himself during lunch and avoided picking fights with anyone. At first, his friends teased him about it, calling him soft or scared, but Kevin didn't react. Instead, he seemed lost in thought, often staring off into space as if replaying something over and over in his mind. Lily Carter, on the other hand, became something of a legend. Students who had previously ignored her now sought her out, eager to learn more about her. Some wanted advice on how to stand up for themselves, while others just wanted to hear stories about her grandfather. Rumors continued to swirl about her connection to Chuck Norris, though Lily never confirmed or denied them. She simply smiled and went about her day, treating everyone with kindness and patience. One afternoon, after gym class, Kevin found himself lingering near Lily's locker. He wasn't sure why he did it. Maybe because he felt guilty, maybe because he was curious, but he waited until she appeared in the hallway. When Lily spotted him, she paused, her expression unreadable. "What do you want now?" she asked, her tone neutral but not unkind. Kevin shuffled his feet awkwardly, avoiding her gaze. I wanted to ask you something," he mumbled. "About your grandfather." Lily raised an eyebrow. "What about him?" "Well," Kevin hesitated, unsure how to phrase his question without sounding ridiculous. "Is it true? Are you really related to Chuck Norris?" Lily sighed, leaning against her locker. Why does everyone keep asking me that? Because you're amazing, Kevin blurted out, surprising even himself. I mean, what you did to me? That was insane. I've never seen anyone move like that before. And then there are all these rumors about your family, so, is it true? For a moment, Lily considered lying or brushing him off, but something about Kevin's sincerity made her pause. He looked genuinely interested, not mocking or teasing, just curious. Yes, she admitted finally. He's my grandfather. Kevin's eyes widened in disbelief. No way, seriously? You're Chuck Norris's granddaughter? Yes, Lily repeated, crossing her arms. But that doesn't mean I'm special or anything. It just means I've been taught certain things. Like how to fight like that? Kevin asked, gesturing wildly with his hands. That was incredible. I've never seen moves like that. Outside of movies. It's not just about fighting, Lily said firmly. It's about discipline, respect, and knowing when to use your skills. My grandfather taught me that violence isn't the answer most of the time. But sometimes, people need to be shown where the line is. Kevin nodded slowly, absorbing her words. I guess I crossed that line, huh? You definitely did, Lily agreed, though her tone softened. But apologizing was a good start. If you're serious about changing, you'll figure out the rest. Kevin took a deep breath, steeling himself. Can I meet him? Your grandfather, I mean. Maybe he could teach me some stuff, like how to be better. Lily blinked in surprise. She hadn't expected this request. Why do you want to meet him? Because I need help, Kevin admitted, his voice cracking slightly. I don't want to be the guy who picks on people anymore. I don't want to feel like garbage every time I look in the mirror, but I don't know how to fix it. Maybe your grandfather can show me. Lily studied him carefully, weighing his words. Finally, she nodded. Okay, I'll talk to him. But don't get your hopes up. He's not exactly the kind of person who trains random kids. The following Saturday, Kevin found himself standing nervously outside a modest ranch house on the outskirts of town. The driveway was lined with tall oak trees, their branches swaying gently in the breeze. A weathered wooden fence surrounded the property, and the sound of distant hoofbeats suggested horses grazing nearby. It was a far cry from the flashy mansion Kevin had imagined belonging to someone like Chuck Norris. Lily greeted him at the door, dressed casually in jeans and a t-shirt. Come on in, she said, leading him through the cozy living room and out onto the back porch. There, sitting in a rocking chair with a cup of coffee in hand, was Chuck Norris. Kevin froze, momentarily overwhelmed. Despite his age, Chuck radiated strength and presence. His piercing blue eyes locked onto Kevin, making him feel both small and exposed. For a second, Kevin wondered if coming here had been a terrible idea. But then Chuck smiled faintly, setting his mug aside. So, you're the infamous Kevin Harper, Chuck said, his voice calm but firm. Lily tells me you've been causing trouble at school. Kevin swallowed hard, nodding sheepishly. Yeah, that's me. Well, it was me. I'm trying to change, though. That's why I'm here. Chuck leaned forward slightly, studying him intently. Changing isn't easy. It takes effort, humility, and a willingness to face your mistakes head on. Are you ready for that? I think so, Kevin replied, his voice trembling. I messed up big time. I hurt people, including Lily. I don't want to be that guy anymore. I want to be better. Chuck nodded slowly, as if considering his response. Then he stood up and motioned for Kevin to follow him. They walked across the yard to a large open field where several wooden training dummies stood. Chuck stopped in the center and turned to face Kevin. First lesson, he said, folding his arms. Respect starts with yourself. If you don't value who you are, you'll have a hard time valuing others. What do you respect about yourself right now? Kevin frowned, caught off guard by the question. I don't know. Not much, honestly. That's a problem, Chuck replied. You can't build a strong foundation on empty ground. Think about it. What are you good at? What makes you proud? Kevin hesitated, searching his mind for answers. I guess I used to be good at football, before I started caring more about being tough than playing fair. Good, Chuck said, nodding approvingly. Now we're getting somewhere. Second lesson: respect extends to others. Everyone has worth, whether they look like you, act like you, or believe like you. Treating people poorly doesn't make you stronger, it makes you weaker. Kevin hung his head, guilt washing over him. I get it now. I really do. I didn't know any better. Chuck placed a hand on his shoulder, his grip firm but reassuring. That's why we're here. To teach you better. But remember, learning is only half the battle. Applying what you learn is what truly matters. Over. The next hour, Chuck put Kevin through a series of exercises designed to teach focus, control, and precision. Unlike the roughhousing Kevin was used to, these drills emphasized technique over brute force. By the end of the session, Kevin was drenched in sweat, but exhilarated. For the first time in years, he felt like he was accomplishing something meaningful. They wrapped up. Chuck handed Kevin a towel and patted him on the back. You've got potential, kid. Don't waste it. Keep working on yourself and don't give up when things get tough. Kevin nodded, gratitude swelling in his chest. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. On the drive home, Kevin couldn't stop smiling. He knew he still had a long way to go, but for the first time in his life, he felt hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, he could become the person he'd always wanted to be and earn the respect he'd spent so many years trying to demand. Back at the ranch, Lily watched Kevin leave with a satisfied smile. Think he'll stick with it? She asked her grandfather. Chuck chuckled softly, leaning back in his chair. Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, he's already taken the hardest step, admitting he needs help. Lily nodded, feeling a sense of pride. Whether Kevin succeeded or stumbled along the way, she knew he'd learned something valuable today. And sometimes, that was enough. Weeks passed and Maplewood High began to feel like a different place. Kevin Harper's transformation was slow but noticeable. He no longer strutted through the hallways like he owned the school or mocked students who didn't fit into his old clique. Instead, he carried himself with a quiet determination, often seen practicing moves in an empty corner of the gym during lunch breaks. His friends noticed the change too, Jake especially, who teased him less and supported him more, impressed by how hard Kevin was working to turn things around. At first, some students doubted whether Kevin's newfound behavior would last. They whispered behind his back, wondering if it was just an act to gain sympathy. But as days turned into weeks, even the skeptics had to admit that Kevin seemed genuinely different. He started helping younger students carry their books, apologized to those he'd bullied in the past, and even joined a community service club. The same boy who once ruled the school with fear was now earning respect through kindness and effort. Lily Carter continued to be a guiding presence in Kevin's journey, though she kept her distance most of the time. She wasn't interested in taking credit for his growth. She simply wanted to see him succeed. Occasionally, she'd offer advice when he struggled or remind him why he'd started down this path in the first place. Change isn't about perfection, she told him one day after he expressed frustration over slipping back into old habits. It's about progress. As long as you're moving forward, you're doing okay. Kevin nodded, grateful for her wisdom. Though they weren't close friends, he respected Lily deeply, not just for her skills, but for her patience and understanding. She had given him a second chance when others might have written him off, and he vowed never to take that for granted. Chuck Norris also played a crucial role in Kevin's development. Every Saturday morning, Kevin drove out to the ranch for training sessions that pushed him physically and mentally. Chuck taught him not only martial arts techniques, but also lessons about discipline, humility, and integrity. One particularly memorable session involved sparring with Lily, who effortlessly countered every move Kevin attempted. Afterward, Chuck pulled him aside and said, "Strength isn't about overpowering someone, it's about controlling yourself. When you can master your own actions, you'll be unstoppable." By the end of each session, Kevin was exhausted but exhilarated. He loved the challenge of improving himself and felt a sense of accomplishment he'd never experienced before. Slowly but surely, he began to understand what it meant to earn respect rather than demand it. The turning point came during the school's annual talent show fundraiser. Held in the auditorium, the event brought together students, teachers, and parents for an evening of performances ranging from singing to stand-up comedy. This year, however, all eyes were on Lily Carter, who had volunteered to perform a martial arts demonstration. As the lights dimmed and music began to play, Lily stepped onto the stage wearing a sleek white uniform adorned with a black belt. Her movements were fluid and precise, each kick and punch executed with perfect control. She spun, flipped, and struck invisible opponents with such grace and power that the audience erupted into applause after every sequence. By the time she finished, the entire auditorium was on its feet, cheering wildly. When the noise finally settled, Lily bowed deeply to the crowd. Then, to everyone's surprise, she gestured toward the wings, signaling for someone else to join her on stage. Kevin emerged hesitantly, dressed in workout clothes and looking nervous but determined. He stood beside Lily, who smiled encouragingly at him. "Before we go, I want to share something," Lily said into the microphone, her voice clear and confident. "A few months ago, Kevin Harper made a mistake. He disrespected me and hurt me in front of everyone. But instead of holding on to anger, I gave him a chance to make things right. And today I'm proud to say he's become someone worth respecting." The audience murmured approvingly as Kevin stepped forward, clearing his throat. "I'm not great at speeches," he admitted, scratching the back of his neck. "But I need to say this. What happened between me and Lily was my fault, and I'm sorry for it. I spent years thinking being tough meant putting people down, but I was wrong. Real strength comes from lifting others up and treating them with kindness. Thanks to Lily and her grandfather, I've learned what it means to be better, so yeah, that's all I wanted to say." The room fell silent for a moment before erupting into applause once again. Parents wiped away tears, teachers exchanged proud smiles, and students clapped loudly, many rising to their feet. For Kevin, it was a moment of redemption and proof that change was possible. After the show ended, Kevin found Lily backstage, surrounded by classmates congratulating her on her performance. When the crowd thinned out, he approached her, holding out a hand awkwardly. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "For everything." Lily shook his hand firmly, her expression warm. "You did the work, Kevin. I just pointed you in the right direction." From that night on, Kevin became a role model for other students. He continued training with Chuck, eventually earning his trust and friendship. Together, they organized self-defense workshops at the school, teaching students how to protect themselves while emphasizing the importance of respect and responsibility. Lily joined them occasionally, offering tips and encouragement, and their partnership inspired countless others to pursue positive change. Even outside of school, Kevin's influence grew. He started volunteering at local shelters and mentoring younger kids, sharing the lessons he'd learned about humility and perseverance. His reputation transformed from that of a bully to someone people admired and looked up to, a leader who led by example rather than force. As for Lily, she remained the same quiet, thoughtful girl she'd always been. She didn't seek fame or recognition, content to live life on her own terms. But she carried with her the knowledge that she had made a difference, not just in Kevin's life, but in the lives of everyone he touched. One evening, as the sun set over the ranch, Lily sat with her grandfather on the porch, watching the horizon glow orange and pink. "Do you think Kevin will keep going?" she asked softly. Chuck chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "He's already proven he has the heart for it. Sometimes all a person needs is a little guidance and the courage to try again." Lily smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. Life wasn't perfect, and challenges would always arise. But as long as people were willing to learn, grow, and support one another, there was hope for a brighter future. And in that moment, surrounded by family and possibility, Lily knew she was exactly where she was meant to be.